Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel. In this channel, we make videos on learning web development, learning web application development, e-commerce development, digital marketing. If you're new to this channel, please feel free to subscribe. You'll find the subscribe button at the bottom of the video that you're watching right now, that red button over there. Please subscribe so that you will always be informed and you'll get notifications every time we set up a new video in this channel. We have new videos on Wednesdays and on Saturdays. Also, like this video and leave me a comment below, and I will try to get to each and every single comment that is made on this video. Another useful feature that we have on our videos is at the bottom inside the description box. If you expand the description of the video, you will see we've got timestamps to interesting sections in the videos that we're making, because we make a lot of long videos, so you don't have to watch the entire video. You can just read through the timestamp and read about the section that you're interested in, and you can just click on that timestamp and it will take you exactly to that section, and you can just watch that section. And it's also useful in future. If you return, you can just go to the timestamp and click on the section that you want to watch again. And also in the description below, guys, we've got links to our social media channels: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Please follow us there as well. We sometimes output information in there, and let's start learning. In this video, we're going to introduce the project that we'll be working through in the next couple of weeks inside our course, okay? The course that we are working on now is called Web App Development Masterclass. So I'm going to take you through the entire process of web app development from the beginning to the end, as if you were a web developer that is getting a project from a client. I think a lot of videos and tutorials that you will see are tutorials to just show you the technical part of web development, or a specific framework, how to use a specific framework, or just like maybe the SEO part of web development. But I'd like to think about it as a holistic approach and try to think from the perspective of the web developer themselves. Because if you are a web developer, you're not only concerned about the framework. So the framework we're going to be using in this course is Django. So let's say you are a web developer. You're not only concerned about the Django framework, you are concerned about delivering the end product to the client. So what we're going to be doing in this tutorial, we're going to take you through the process of A to Z, delivering a web app project to a client, and all the processes you would have to go through from the beginning to the end, and thinking about it from a professional point of view if you were running your own development company. So I want you to have that kind of mindset that although we are going to be using frameworks here and there, we're going to be using tools that we will be applying and drawing into the project as we're going along. We are not focused on a specific tool or on a specific process, but we are looking at this thing holistically, because that is how it is in the real life. In real life, a client gives you a project and you have to deliver the whole project, and then you have to decide what tools you're going to gather into your toolbox to use to deliver this project. So that is the approach that we're going to be following. So this is going to be a long course, and we cannot cover everything in one single lecture. We're going to break this down into multiple lectures, but they will form a series or a playlist, and then you can be able to watch them one after the other. And this will be the first lecture in that series of lectures that we're going to be doing to cover the entire process of web app development, okay? Like I've mentioned already, the platform that we're going to be using is a Python Django, okay? So Python Django is a web development framework that is like sort of a complete, it's sort of the most complete, mostly, most diverse, web development platforms that a lot of big companies use. And later on, I'm going to give you a bit of examples of actual websites that have been built on Python Django to just show you how powerful this framework is, because it really is. It includes everything that you need. It is developed almost like, to help the web developer in all the little pieces that they need to, like the database and how to talk to all of that. So all of that is done nicely in Python Django, as opposed to if you were working with Python Flask, which is very lightweight and it only has like very little things, very like basic skeletal things inside the Python Flask, and then you would have to like sort of you yourself figure out what you want to use, and then you have more flexibility. So Django is sort of more complete. You have a little bit less flexibility, but it really has everything that you need, all right? Whereas if you're working on something like a Python Flask, for example, it is very thin and very skeletal, and then you have to decide yourself what you're going to add onto it to make it, what you want. Okay, so perhaps in future we'll do another masterclass where we will do the entire project on Flask, so I can show you the differences. Okay, but for now we're going to focus only on the Django platform. Okay, so let's continue. The project plan, and this is very basic project plan. This is actually just to help you understand, the thinking and put your mind in the frame that we're gonna be, working with. All right, we're gonna start with three main project sections. All right, there is definitely more to this, but for this tutorial and for these lectures, we're going to work only with project planning, and then we're going to go into project execution, and then we're going to go into project deployment. Okay, and a lot of tutorials you will find only focus on project execution. This is why I'm trying to help you by giving you an entire project execution approach in letting you know all the things you will need to do, because project planning, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the most important parts of putting together a project like this. And you will see we're going to have a couple of lectures just on the project planning part, and you will see what it is that we have to cover here, because if you plan well, the project execution goes much better, and you'll spend less time executing your project when you know exactly what it is that you need to do if you've planned it properly. So the first part, or the first few lectures that we're going to cover, is going to be around project planning. And after we've done project planning, then we will go into actually executing the plan that we've made, and you will see that there are things that are going to change between the plan and the execution, and that's normal. It happens in a lot of projects, because the plan is what with all the information you have when you make the plan, but when you execute, a lot of other things come about. And yes, the plan can change, but you always need to have a plan when you go into the execution. And then we're going to finish off with deployment. All right, so let's get started. So a client came to us and requested us to build them a job board web application. So I'm going to be taking you through this project and as a realistic project as possible, okay? Because this is the type of requirement you would get from a client. They would come to you and say, Scholar Online, I would like for you to build me a job board. Okay, so what is a job board? A job board is a place where you would post specific jobs that you have available, like based on different companies that give you all these job requirements. I've got a job for a developer, I've got a job for a front-end developer, I've got a job for a Python developer, I've got a form for C++. Whatever the job requirements is, a client would post those jobs in there. Job seekers would go to the job board and say, let me search for, I'm only searching for web developers that are needed in Johannesburg section, for example. And then all the jobs in Johannesburg will come up, and, you'll be able to sort of, search through the database and then find the job that you want, click on the job that you want, and then apply. Perhaps you'll be requested to sign in so that you can give them your personal information, so that we make sure that you're the real person that's applying for this job. Perhaps you'll be requested to attach your CV to do the application, your phone number, your details, your address. So we're going to go through the process of developing this entire system. And then when you're done, maybe the person that's applied for the job will submit the job, and then maybe they will want to be kept informed when the job, person that posted the job reads the application, and whether or not they're successful or not, or whatever. So we're going to go through the process of designing this type of web application. This is the client that came to us, and this is exactly what they want. And typically, this is as much information as you normally get when a client comes to you requesting you to build them the type of website. Then from then on, it's up to you as a web developer to start thinking around this and start planning around how you're going to actually build this. Yes, we've decided we're going to do this on Django because this is going to be a Django tutorial, but you don't just start there. You actually start at the beginning and thinking about it as a business case. How are you going to do this? How are you going to build this in a way that is going to be useful to the client? Okay, so let's just break this down a little bit and think around. And I've drawn for you, like sort of a high level diagram of what exactly we're going to be building here, okay? We're going to be building a job board web application. So this is not going to be a website. And maybe this is a good place for us to discuss static versus dynamic. We've done a lot of static websites in the past. If you look at the videos we have in this, in our Scholar Online YouTube channel, there's a video we've made on how to build a GitHub pages free, static application. Those type of websites are, static information doesn't change, So if I put my CV online in website format, my name, my surname, my address, my qualifications, my portfolio, that information will be static. It doesn't change. Anybody that would go to that website to look at my by your website, they would see the same information, whether they were searching it from China or they were searching it from Joburg or they're searching it from Europe. The information is the same that gets served to them. All right. If this, it doesn't matter how they serve it, that information comes from one HTML file, and that HTML file gets served the same way. That is what we call a static application. But what we are going to be building now is what we call a dynamic application. It's not going to be the same. Somebody is going to come into this application and search for, I want a graphic designer position available in Johannesburg, right? So our application has to go into our database and serve them only the jobs that we've got that are related to graphic designer in Johannesburg. So the server has to look at the client request. So what we get with the website, you get a client request, and that client request has to come to the server, and the server has to read that request, or they want only this types of jobs in Johannesburg, and then it has to query the database, and from the database it gets only the data that we have for this type of job in this type of location, and it has to return a response back to the application. Then the application has to figure out how to display this response back to the client on the front end. So this is the type of web application you're going to be building. There's a couple of steps that's going to be taking place. All right. Another person might go to the exact same website, the exact same front end, even at the exact same time. Okay, and they might be searching for, I'm looking for a blockchain developer in Cape Town. All right, so the same application has to be able to send another request. The same front end, the different front end will send the request to the same server, and that same server has to go to the same database, but this time it has a different query. It's now no longer querying, front end, graphic designers in Johannesburg. It's now querying blockchain developers in Cape Town, and the database must now give a different response. Okay, and that response comes back to the server, and that server has to send that response back to the front end. So this front end, we could be two different people going to the same website, HTML dot whatever it is we're gonna serve, wherever we're gonna serve this website, and we could be searching for different things, and it's gonna display different results to us, but although it's the same application. So this is what we call a dynamic application. The data that gets served to the front end is dynamic in nature, and it gets served based on the request that it receives and the database that it has. Okay, so if it went to the database, even if it got the same request, but let's say we were limiting, let's say we said, we could add other functionalities into our application and say, perhaps you need to be a paid member, and then paid members can access the full database, and members that haven't paid can only see maximum 2 results, for example. You could build that into your front end, and someone could have the exact same request, right? That I want to see blockchain developers in Cape Town, but the server would look at that request and then do its own computations and figure out who is making the request. Are you a paid member? Do you have the rights to see all the data we have, or you are a trial member? And if you're a trial member, we can only show you only 2 results to just show you what it is you can get from our database. And then once you become a paid member, then we're going to show you all of the results. So all of this, the server has to do all those computations, and we have to write all those functionalities in there, right? And this is what we call a dynamic application. It serves dynamic results to the front end based on the user, based on the query, based on what it is they want to see, based on a whole lot of things. Okay, so this is the type of thing that we are going to be building. So it's going to be exciting, guys, and we're going to be doing this on Python, Django. We're going to be using Django specifically and taking you through the whole process of building such a web application on Django. Okay. So let's go through the planning processes and everything that we're going. Okay, before we go through the planning, I think let's spend some time. I'll show you a little bit about the Django framework and some reading material. Okay, so if you go to djangoproject.com, okay, on your browser, you can have a look at the Django documentation and main website and just read about everything that is on Django, because this is a good time for you to go and read up on it. Perhaps if you're seeing this for the first time, go in there, go through the documentation, the community, the issues, whatever. Just go through this and read it, because we're going to be doing a lot of the stuff that is sort of in the documentation. But in this tutorial, I won't be taking you through the documentation step by step, interpreting the documentation as I build the application. I'm going to build the application as I need to build it. So if you want to read the documentation, you're going to have to read it in your own time. If there's something specific that I would like to refer to the documentation on, I will do that. But specifically, that is not going to be the main aim, to be like taking you through the documentation step by step, because I know some tutorials do that. But that's not the point of this, because the point of this is not to teach you Django. The point of this is to build a web application. Okay, so I'm going to be taking you through the steps of building your application step by step as a web developer, hence using Django as a tool. All right, so this is not a Django tutorial. It is a Django tutorial, but not exactly right. Then once you've done that, let's go then to our planning tool. Okay, the last time we did this web application, A to Z, step by step, I showed you guys a project planning tool that is free. And the only reason I'm using this is because it's free, okay? It's called clickup.com. And if you go to clickup.com, you can just create an account for free. I know they have paid version, but the one that we're using is the free version. And we're going through all of this without actually paying for the project planning tool, okay? So you go there and you create a new, just create a new project. So this is the last project we created the last time that we worked on when we did our last web application. This one, we had to create a whole new space. So create a brand new space inside of ClickUp. If you're not sure how, please just go through the video that we did in the past. Once you've created a brand new space, inside the brand new space, I want you to create three different what we call under spaces. We call them lists. Okay, so lists are like little subsections of the space. So we're going to divide our project plan into like different categories. So if you look at what I showed you up here, if this was the main project plan, we're going to divide it into the planning section. So this whole planning section is going to be a list in its own. And inside project planning, we're going to have different tasks that we have to cover inside of project planning. All right. So put project planning as a list inside the space. I mean, if you're not sure how to do this, let me see if I go in there, everything. Okay, no, it's fine, guys. So do this outside, because this is also not a tutorial on ClickUp. Okay, so just create a space, and if you're not sure, just go back to the video that we've done before, and inside the space create 3 different lists. And once you have the 3 different lists, the first list we're working with is the project planning. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the detail of the execution and the deployment for now, because we're going to focus solely on the project planning. So within the project planning, these are all the tasks that we're going to be covering, not in this video, because this is a video on planning itself. All right, in the next videos, we're going to be going through these different sections. Okay, so inside of project planning, the first thing we'll be covering is we're going to first start by creating our development environment. So we're gonna start from absolute scratch, and I will take you into creating your own development environment. If you click on development environment, you can see the subtasks we'll be doing in there. Okay, we're going to get a virtual server that we're going to be developing all of this from, so that whether you're running on Windows, whatever, you're going to be able to follow along, because this virtual server will be virtual, not even on your computer. Okay, we're going to do this on Linux and Ubuntu 20. So we're going to go through the process of doing all of that. We're going to set up our virtual server in there, and we're going to let me actually just like go back. All right, to virtual environment. We're going to set up the virtual server. We're going to install Python 3 virtual environment, and then we're going to start creating like the skeletal structure for our Django file structure. So this is just setting up the development environment. You're going to see it's quite time consuming, because we're going to do it step by step, and I'm going to show you as I go along exactly how to do that. Once we've done the development environment, we're going to go into the project resources. So the project resources is going to be everything that we need to use to so there's no subtasks in here, but what I mean by project resources is what do we need to create this web application. So we need HTML, we need CSS, and I'm not a CSS developer, and I'm definitely not an HTML developer, so we're going to work off people's templates, and I've searched and found pretty decent free templates that we're going to be working with for this specific website. So I'm going to take you through that at the time. All right, and then after that, we're going to actually, I can show you the free template here. I've already found it. It's of ThemeWagon, and this is what it looks like. So finally, when we build our website, it will look like this. Okay, maybe we'll change the pictures and the colors around, but the basic structure will be like this. You'll have a front end like this where people can search for the company, whatever the region. Maybe we'll remove the region and just have the job type and the company, and they can search, and then they will see all the jobs available in that section. I mean, in that search query, and maybe there'll be like some top rated jobs that we have on the front page, and people can click on the job and they can get the detail on the job and apply to it. So this is the template that we're going to work off, but this template is just HTML. We're going to take this HTML and we're going to wire it into a back-end server that is on Django, that is going to actually build, make this the web application that we want to make it into. All right. So once we've done the project resources, we're going to go into, we're going to do a little bit of planning into the content planning, because I think this is a bit of a complex project. Not too complex. I think we've definitely done more complex than this, but complex enough that you might want to spend some time thinking around how your content structure is going to look like. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that we're going to be using object-oriented programming, which means we're going to be programming around, as opposed to function-oriented, we're going to be programming around objects, And if you've done a little bit of object-oriented programming, you'll understand what we're doing as we go along. If you haven't, it doesn't matter. In fact, the fancy words don't matter at all. What this means is that we're going to be working with data. Think of an object as a data set of a thing. So a car, imagine if you thought of a car as an object, right? You could say that a car has certain features, all right? And each and every feature is like, let's say that one feature of the car could be the color of the car, the make, the model, the type of the car, how, when it was created, the car, when it was built and so forth, and each and every single car would have different features. So the car could be the object, and all the features in the car could be instances of that car. So if I have my car is red, and it's a Mercedes-Benz, and it was created in 1994, and your car could be blue, and it's a BMW, and it was created in 1904. So all the object would be the car, and all the different features inside the car are the different variables that make that object, and each and every car is an instance of that object, right? So we're going to be using that same type of programming when we're doing this, and give an example. What are all the different objects, for example, we need to design our data around? It's things like, for this, a profile, for example, you could think of that as an object, a user profile. Okay, so each and every single user would have to have a name, a surname, an address, whatever, and each and every single user, it would be, like if I'm user one is an instance of the user object. You understand what I'm saying? And then user two maybe has a different name, surname, whatever. So we have to create those objects. What are all those data objects that we have? We could have user as one data object. Then we could have, a job as a data object, and each and every job would have, what are the requirements of the job, when is the closing date of the job, when does the job start, when does the job end, da, da, da. So we have to design all those data structures, the job, the user, and we have to think about this application we're building. What are all the things that make sense in terms of those objects that we need? Because that goes into the core of a content management system. That content is those objects, and you have to figure out what they are and design them accordingly. And then the next part is, how are they related to each other, right? So a user might have 3 or 4 job applications, right? But a company, for example, that's a company might also be another object, and a company might also have 3 or 4 jobs, right? And the job itself as an object might have a company that it's related to, but also a user or a list of users that have applied for that job. You understand? So when you design a web application like this that has complex data sets, you have to think about the objects that you're going to be working with, and what are those objects and what's related to what. And that actually, you shouldn't think about it in the development process, because you already know you're going to be working with object-oriented programming. You need to actually think about it in the planning phase, because the planning of it will help you determine even the type of technology you want to use. Because sometimes people decide, oh, I'm going to use Django, da, da, da. And then halfway through the line, then they realize actually the relationships are way too complex for Django to handle, but you've already used Django. So sometimes I personally like to start with the planning and planning the data structures at the beginning and figuring out how many relationships I need to work with, like how many relationships does JAWS have with, like, in terms of the objects, so that I can decide very early on, do I really want to use Django here, or perhaps I want to use maybe a rethink database. Therefore, maybe I want to not use Django, I want to use Flask, because maybe Flask will give me better, flexibility in sort of writing, more function oriented stuff, So this is very, very important. So we're going to think about this in the planning phase. And once we've done that, so this is the content. Then we're going to go into SEO. Again, people like to leave this to the end. They want to build a website and finish building it. And then when they're finish building it, then they want to go hire and a search engine optimizer specialist company to go and do SEO. But they've already built the website. And then that guy can't even read the Django code. And they can't read Python. And they're trying to figure out how to do search engine. Maybe they only work with WordPress SEO, WordPress plugins, So if you're going to be the developer and you're writing the Django code, you actually have to already consider at least on-page SEO as you go along, because no one else is probably going to be able to go and read your code later once you're done and try to optimize keywords in the way you've written your HTML templates, okay? So the developer actually has to do the SEO in this case, because I try to read somebody else's Python code and you're going to lose your mind, okay? So in this specific case, we are going to think about it, and it's best practice. And in my web development sort of career, that's how I do it. If I'm going to build a website, I'm going to at least have it search engine friendly when I'm done with it, so that even if another company comes in, at least the on-page SEO is done. So nobody's going to request my HTML files and try to reorganize my S engine and mess up everything, right? So it's better for me to do it. So I have to now think about the keywords that I'm working with. What is this client trying to target? They're trying to do a job search, and what are people searching for, so that I can build that into the HTML and I can build that into the content of the website as I go along, and I can think about search engine as I'm building the website. So we're going to talk about the keywords, and we're going to go through into all of that through the project planning of this. And then this is also important, marketing and branding. Big companies will have entire marketing and branding departments, or they'll hire another company to do marketing and branding. We're a small company of jack of all trades. So we're going to just do everything ourselves. We're going to do a search engine ourselves. We're going to do marketing and branding ourselves. We're not going to go fancy on the marketing and branding. Actually, we just want, we just want a logo. We just want to know which colors our website is going to be like, are we going to use green, or are we going to use a different color, so maybe the client will tell us, actually my color, my corporate color is blue. Whatever the client tells us, then we're going to work around that, and maybe you just build a simple logo, images that go along with that color, and work on that. So we're going to do that now, because we need fav icons and all those things. At least a logo, we need a logo. So even if the branding is only just designing the logo, this is something we can definitely do even from our end, and we're definitely going to do that. And then we're going to do social media. And by social media, I mean we're just going to get the social media accounts going, okay? So we're going to go open up the Facebook, Twitter, whatever for this platform, because when you do a website, actually it's always better to get the social media done at the same time, because when you get into your keyword planning and you've picked your keywords that you want to work with, it's better to already just secure all those keywords throughout the social media. So if you decide your website is going to be called, I don't know, what's a fancy name? Job engine Joburg. I decide that's my main keyword, and then I want to call my website that. I might want to just secure those names on social media as well. Job engine Joburg, on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. That's why we are doing it now, because it would be a shame if you picked a name for yourself, Mondi, and you said that's my company name, Mondi, that's my branding, and then you go and you build a website, and a year later, the social media department comes and says, oh yeah, let's open up the social media pages, and then they go to Facebook and they try to go Facebook Mondi to try and secure that name, and somebody's taken that name. Okay, so maybe you want to do this at the beginning. You understand what you're going to do at the planning phase, because you don't want to run a company for 2 years and then find actually that Twitter name, someone is already using it. And that's going to mess up your branding. So earlier on, at this point, because it's still planning, if you get to this point and you realize, oh, well, this name is being used all over Twitter and Facebook, you can still change it. We're still in the planning phase. We haven't committed to anything. We haven't even secured a domain. We are still planning. At this point, we are still talking with the client. Whatever we decide here, we're still going to send it over to the client, and the client can like sit there and say, actually, I don't like that name, use something else. But the point is, we want to at least get all these things secured, earlier on. Okay. So once we finish with the planning, at least then we know we've locked on these things. We've locked on our keywords. We've locked on the name. We've locked on the logo. We've locked on the branding. And if you're a really important company, this is when you want to go to, your copyright and your the legal stuff, and get these names sort of like, copyrighted to your company so that nobody else can use these names. Okay, this is after you've done this exercise, this is a good time to do it. I know lots of companies don't do it, and then they run with that name for a couple of years. Then somebody sees the name and they check it with the copyright registry and they realize, no, you haven't even, secured that name. And then they go and get that name secured for themselves, and then you can't use it anymore. And then they want to sell it to you for like a couple of hundreds of thousands. So if you are doing things properly legally, after you've done this is when you go and do the legal bit of getting the name sort of associated with your business and get that copyright for that name. Okay, so once you've done that, this is just the planning. We haven't even written a single line of code. And looking at this, maybe this is going to take us 2 to 3 lectures to do. I don't know. We'll see how long it is. We don't want the lectures to be too long, but I'm anticipating maybe at least 2 lectures, maybe 3. So just the first third of the project is not. We haven't even written a single line of code. We're just planning. All right, so let's go back to our tutorial. So that's the project planning. I will go through the execution later because I don't want to overwhelm you too early on. Okay, for now, just think about everything we need to do as far as the planning goes. Okay, the database. Okay, so we've discussed this, what we're going to store in the database. Okay, we're gonna store, remember when we went into the object-oriented stuff, we're gonna store the profile information, use the CVs, the applications, the company profile. So this is what we'll be thinking about, this database development when we are thinking about the objects that we're going to be creating in this project. And this also will influence the type of database you want to use. Are you going to go, the type of database you use, is related to, the type of data you have. So we'll go through that, and the server functions. Okay, so these are the type of functions. Actually, I want to spend a little bit of time on this. I don't know if I can make this a little bit larger on the screen for you. Okay, at this planning stage, these are the requirements the client has given us. Okay, and typically a client will give you these requirements, and if a client does not give you these requirements, as a web developer, I highly suggest you imagine what these requirements are and you write them down and give them over to the client and have the client confirm them for you. Because what you don't want is to have a misalignment on expectations. And I've had this happen to me a couple of times, where a client comes to you with very vague requests like, I want you to build me a job portal, and they go away. Okay, and then you give them a quote, and then they go away, and a month, 2 months later, you give them a job portal, and they're like, no, but it doesn't do this, but it doesn't do that. And then you end up spending double the time doing change orders, requests, like doing revisions for stuff that wasn't clear. Okay, so at the beginning, if the client is not clear in the details, it's best for you to write those details down for the client and have him approve it, because this will minimize your change orders and revisions at the end of the project. So I'm gonna write, the client has told me, okay, then I want a job search or whatever. Then I'm gonna write down all the things the website is going to do. Okay. It's going to serve available jobs from the database. It's going to capture CVs, CV documents, okay? So these are the only documents we're going to capture. Okay, and it's going to capture user profiles, okay? I write this to the client. It's going to capture company profiles. It's going to enable upload of jobs by companies. Any individual can come in there and upload jobs, okay? Then here you want to say, do you want to approve or not? If a company decides to just post a job, do you want to approve that, or do you want to approve the company profiles themselves? And if we've approved SAB as a company, then SAB can post whatever job. Or we don't approve company, everybody registers as a company, and then we have to approve the jobs they post. I don't know. You have to think about, because you also have to think about the integrity of your website. Okay, you don't want, if you want to be like a niche sort of like development type jobs, then you don't want somebody to upload a job for a cleaner. How are you going to manage that? Who approves what checks you have in place? Are you going to do it programmatically, or are you going to have a manual person approving jobs? Okay, and then another thing here is, are people going to pay for this? A company is going to pay. Do you want me to integrate a payment mechanism, or is this just a free for all and we're going to make our money through advertising? This is the kind of things you want to discuss with the client now, so you can specify, so you can know the scope or the extent of the work that you need to do in the planning phase of the project. Okay, web scrapping. The client said, okay, at the beginning, I'm not going to have 100. Maybe I'll have 2 different companies that have registered. So instead, what we're going to do, instead of trying to get companies to register, we're going to go and scrap job search data off the internet and include that in our website. So what the client is saying is, actually, I want you to find the data for the jobs yourself off the internet by scrapping them off other job search engines. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be scrapping for jobs and including those in our website, and focus on getting the users who apply for the jobs to come to our website to apply for jobs on our website. Then we sort of going to make money through, if lots of people come on our website and register, then we can advertise to them, and maybe we're going to make money through advertising, right? Now, we're going to enable applications of jobs. We're going to have authentication, user management, so that people that are viewing jobs off our website are going to have to, maybe they can view the jobs, but the moment they want to make an application, then they have to log in. The moment someone has to log in, then you have to have an authentication process. How do you authenticate and logged in, logged out user, blah, blah, blah. You have to think about all of that. Do you want them to log in with Facebook, Google, or do you just want them to, you want to have a login with username and password only? You've got to clarify this with the client at the beginning. So user authentication, maybe we're gonna say in here, include Google and Facebook login. Okay, include Google and Facebook login. Okay, data management. The client requires that the jobs we posting on our website has to be relevant always. So every day you have to have fresh data. You can't have a user coming to your website today and they find jobs from 3 months ago that have already expired, and then the latest jobs are not available, because we know users always want fresh jobs. Every day they're applying, they want to know the latest jobs that are on the website. Okay, so you're going to have your code adapt to that. Even if it's scrapping data, how does it scrap only the latest data, or is it going to be scrapping this data on a daily basis, right? All right, email registry. The client wants an email, sort of emailing list of the website. So they want to know all the users they've got, and they are more focused on the user side than the company side. So they're not too worried even about making money from companies. In fact, they can even give that functionality for free. Companies can just register jobs for free if they want. They are more concerned on the job seekers and getting them to register profiles, because they're gonna use that information for advertising to those job seekers, but also to build their email database. And they want to have an email database of the job seekers so that they can email jobs to these new job seekers. Every time there's a new job that comes about, we can email jobs to them, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so the client is interested more in getting an email registry system going, right? And then they also want a blogging functionality. They want for the users that are job seeking to be able to blog for jobs, and even us as admin to be able to blog for jobs on a regular basis, to sort of keep that website content always fresh, but also help us out with being able to sort of, rank for SEO and so forth and so forth. So these are the high level requirements, and I've written them in like very crude form, but on a real project, you would write this in a proper expectations document that you serve the client, and be very specific about the details like I've discussed here. Who pays for what, how are you making money, do you need stuff approved, how are you doing, blah blah blah. Okay, but in this case, I know the client. Actually, I'm the client, so I know these requirements. I'm not too worried about the details of it. Okay, and then after that, I just wanted to go through Django. Why did we choose Django, right? This is just to end this lecture today. I'm going to share with you some of the top websites that have been built on a Django. You wouldn't believe, but actually Instagram, Spotify were built on Python, a Django. YouTube, what you're watching, this on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, YouTube is also built on Django. It wasn't always on Django. Okay, according to sources, it was initially built on PHP. That's the same sort of server that powers WordPress, right? And WordPress type website, and it's the old type server. I think Facebook is also on PHP. But over time, when they became big, and Python is really good with data management and big data. Like when you especially when you want to run those big data algorithms that YouTube has to run, it's got millions and millions of videos, and it wants to sort of be able to serve the right videos to the right people. When you get to like big data algorithms, okay, Python code is good for and it's got a lot of good libraries for that. A lot of companies, when they become big enough, they want to write their code in Python, okay, and therefore Django is written in Python. So you can just serve the front end in Django, and you can have your database wherever you have your database, and then you can have the algorithms and the server, everything you're gonna write in Python code, and then having it served on the front end in Django. So YouTube, yes, Quora, Washington Post, Pinterest, and NASA. The NASA website is built on Django. So Django is really great for complex, I call it like multi-data type, vendor, like if you have a lot of moving parts that you want to keep track of, especially big data that you want to keep track of, and we're not even talking JavaScript. You gotta be talking Python, okay? And if you're talking Python, you got Flask, you got Django. So there's a lot of big companies actually that are also on Flask, and I think I've heard that there was a comment I was reading earlier on that even Pinterest wants to move to Flask, because with Flask then you get more flexibility. Flask and Django is very similar, by the way. The only difference is with Flask, you don't have the assistance that you have with Django. So if you're a beginner, actually, I would highly suggest you start with Django, because Django does everything for you. And then when you really now need even more, like you don't need the trainer wheels of Django, you don't need that anymore. You actually just want to write, you want to be hardcore, then you want to go into Flask, because Flask then just is very skeletal. You can then write everything yourself the way you want it. I mean, with Flask, I've used databases that are sitting in another another a host with servers that are sitting in another host, because Flask just has that ability. You can just do the flip whatever you want with it, okay? But for today, we're gonna be focusing on Django. So I'm going to put this in the description, this link over there, and you can go read it. It's an article that actually, what I'm saying to you, of all these websites that are actually built on Django, if you don't believe me, you can go and read the article, and there's many more articles. You can research this on the internet, and then you will see, guys, like Django is actually a really powerful framework, and it's a lot of the most complex websites you're gonna find today, people build that on Django. Especially if you have, like I said, big data, and you wanna sort of use a lot of the libraries that Python already has for big data, then you wanna be talking either Flask or Django, okay? So thank you guys for watching. In the next lecture, we're going to continue with from our planning. We're going to continue. If we look at let's go to our project plan. In the next lecture, we're going to start with our development environment, project resources, and I don't know, maybe we'll do this a little bit later, because the development environment itself is going to take us a bit of time to set up properly for Django, and the project resources that we're going to need, setting up the HTMLs and all of that. We will do all of that in the next lecture. Thank you guys for watching.